In this lesson, we conclude lesson 2, assignment 2, displaying data and describing trends. Remember, the previous lesson, we completed assignment 2, question 1, and we plot the set of data on a coordinate plane. Then we construct a line of best fit. And we describe the relationship. In this case, it was a positive correlation. Then we did a question 3. And we graph it, but there's no correlation. And we did use our graphing calculator to graph the set of data to get the same relationship. We also use Desmos to come up with a graph. So in today's lesson, we conclude this section and we'll look at 2 example questions. We look at question 2, where you're given a set of data and you're asked to sketch a scatter plot and to make sure you put your scale in the context. Now, I went ahead and I look at my data. And if you look at your data, you're going to find here that this will be your X values. According, this will be your Y. Your temperature is your X, and the ice cream sales is your Y coordinate. Your temperature in degrees Celsius, the maximum is 22.1 degrees Celsius. So this would be your minimum on your scale. But notice it going up an increment, not a very large increment. So we can make our scale 1, 2, 3, 4. But I went ahead and make it 4, increment of 4, 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, 24, 28. So it goes up an increment, equal increment. As long as these are equal, you can indicate your scale as they're equal increment, and they are, the minimum would be the maximum here. So I have more than 22.1, which is about here. I have extra. So I can extrapolate if I would like to extrapolate. The ice cream sales, the maximum here is $406. So, $412, no, $522 goes up to $522. So my scale would be a minimum of $522, and I went up 600. I could increase this to 700, which I could do. So that's my scale, my X and Y coordinate. Now I'll plot these points on the graph. Remember, this is 50, so you're going up an increment of 50. This would be 0. And I label the temperature in degrees Celsius and ice cream sales in dollars. My next step now is to plot these points. And I normally would use a ruler because there's no grid line here. So to get more precision, use a ruler. Now the first temperature is 11.9, which is about here. So 11.9 is 12, so 11.9 would be approximately. And the ice cream sales, when the temperature was 11.9, is $185. Now they're comparing ice cream sales, the temperature, and what happened to ice cream sales. As you can see here, there seems to be an upward trend. The warmer it is, the more ice cream sales, which probably makes some sense. So let's go 11 point, close to 12. And it's $285 a sale. So 185 would be 185 would be about, let's say about that's my 12. So 185 would be about here. 14.2. This would be about here, 14.2. So it's an approximation. This is not as precise as if you had the grid lines. 215. So 200 here, 215 would be about here. Okay. Then we have 15.2, which is and $332. $16.4, $325, slightly below it. And 18.5 is 18. And that's 406. $19.4. $412, slightly above it. And the last one, 22.1. $522. Now I can construct a line of best fit. As you can see, there's a positive correlation. Describe any trends or relationship, we can say is a positive correlation. As temperature increases, so as temperature increases, ice cream sales increases. Now, what would your predicted sales be if the temperature is 20 degrees Celsius? So now, here we're going to go 20 degrees Celsius based on our line here. We will tick mark there. Then I go across, and my $450. So it's between approximately $450. Let's write this properly here. So this would be approximately, so if I go here for 20 degrees Celsius based on my graph, I go across and I get $450. Now that's an approximation. I'll go ahead now and use my graphic calculator to see how precise. Now, by the way, this could have switched around. I could have drawn it like this here. But I try to go through as many points as possible. So the number of points below and above are similar. Now, let's use our graphing calculator or Desmos to get this result. Okay, now we're going to go, well, first, I'm going to go use Desmos. So I already have Desmos established. Now remember, once you have Desmos in your calculator, you've done one of them. You don't have to rewrite your equation every time. All what you have to do now is to go ahead and change your set of data in here. Now I can go ahead and I do another plus here, another table, and you still have your same table before. But to avoid that, I can simply go back to my previous one, and I still have my equation here. But I still have to clear all of my data. The previous data, I should say. So I'm going to go ahead and clear them. Okay, so now I have my table is all clear. Now I'll enter my data for my question here. So I'll go ahead and enter that set of data. Okay. So for my calculator, I'm going to go start here, make sure I got my light. Okay. So my first is 11.9. Next is 14.2. Oops. $15.2, 16.4, 18.5, 19.4, 22.1. Then I go up. I put my Y values, have 185. $215, $332, $325, $406, $412, and the final one, $522. So now then I'll move up, hit the plus sign, and there is my graph, which is very similar, almost the same. See what I have here, but so here's my temperature here, and that's my temperature, my ice cream sales, and those are my points, a line of best fit. Now, the question is, what your predicted sales be if the temperature is 20 degrees? Now here's 20 degrees, right along here. So this is my 20 degrees line. My sales, now this goes up an increment of 50. So 20 degrees right on 50. According to the scale here is 425, because 425, 450, no, it's 450, sorry. 450, 500, 550. It goes up an increment of 50. 50, this would be 500, 550, 600. So at 20 degrees, it will be 450. So almost exactly is what I also have on from my little graph too. So that's predicting, and this means you're interpolating, looking at your within your given data. What's your information you can gather from it? So, for example, if the temperature was 15 degrees, we predict sales. Here we go along 15, and right across there is 200. This is 300. So I can zoom in here a little bit. Here's 15 degrees. So this will be 250, 300. So it's likely, so it's between 250 and 300. So it's approximately $270 in sales. Okay. With your graphing calculator, we'll find a better way of doing this. Right. But right now, that's our reading in terms of what that point is. Now, if I were to tap that specific point, let's see what that be. Could that give us? No, it doesn't. Okay. But using decimals, we could also have done the same thing in our calculator. And let's go ahead and use our graphing calculator. Now I go to my stat button again, enter. Now it's an easy way of clearing all the data. So I go back to my, and I want to enter all of these. Now I can go ahead and put 11.9, enter, and but here what you could actually, the easiest way to do it, to clear your data, is to go up to L1. Then press clear and enter. Do the same thing, go across to L2, press clear and enter. Do not press delete. Press clear button. If you press delete, you will remove that column. Now we have a list one, L1 and L2. Now L1 will be your temperature and L2 will be your sales. So let's enter that set of data. So L1 will be 11.9. Okay, now what I'm doing, because you probably can't see it in my screen, I'm just pressing these buttons here and press enter. It's 14.2. Next is 15.2, 16.4, 18.5, 19.4, and 22.1. And then move over to my L2, 185. Make sure that they are in the correct order. If not, you'll have a different graph. Oh, notice I have. Now notice this value here is 2.1. It should be 22.1. So I'm going to go back here and just put 22.1, press enter. Now it's correct. Double check. I have 11.9, 14.2, 15.2, 16.4, 18.5, 19.4, and 22.1. It's correct. Then I have 185 here, 185, 215, 332, 325, 406, 512, and 522. Now, I need to plot those points, right, and get my graph. Now, if I go to my graph here, I see nothing. Oh, I see a line, but I don't, that's for my previous graph. So I'm going to go back to my Y button and clear that, because I don't want that. Now I only have one point here. So now I'll go to my window button, and I'm going to change my scale. My scale here is from 0 to maximum 22. This is my X maximum. So I put that as, in our scale we had it at 40, so we put 40. And your Y maximum, we have a 600. Put that now we have a graph. There is our set of points. So your window is very critical to set, and your window is based on your given data. Now I want to find my equation. So I press my Y equal button, go to Stat, go to Calc, go to Linear Regression, press Enter. Now that's my linear regression. Press the Vars button, go to Stats, EQ, and that gives you your equation, and press Graph. Oh no, did not press my Y equal button first. Okay, now the mistake I made, I didn't press my Y equal button first, so I need to do that first. And press your var, statistics, EQ, and there's your graph. Now, to find exactly in the graphic calculator what's the temperature, where the temperature is 20 degrees, this is your temperature here, what is your sales? Now, this is where you're going to use your instruction here to determine the x-intercepts, and also to determine over here, you have the y-intercept, vertex, but what you want to find to determine the y value. It's on page 2. I want to find the y value. They're giving me the x value. They give me the x value as being 20 degrees. Go back to our question. Our x value in this question here is 20 degrees Celsius. What is the y value? So to find a y value, there's my graph. I'll follow a set of instructions here. So here we already enter our equations already there. Next, to get our y value, so that's my equation there, I press my second button, it says here, second button and the trace. The second and the trace button. So second, trace, second trace, and you'll come up with a screen here. We'll choose one, we'll press enter by pressing my enter button down here. And what is the temperature? The temperature tell me my x value is 20. Press 20, says here. And then I press my enter button. Choose whatever x value is given, then press your enter button. 448.29. So pretty close to our approximation. So that gives you the sales when the temperature is 20 degrees. Let's give another example. If the temperature was 15 degrees, what will be the sales? Repeat the same process. Second, trace, enter, 15 degrees, the sales will be 282. And notice the cursor flashing tells you the price. Now, what happened if the temperature, go back to our scale here. What happened if the temperature was 32 degrees? Let's look at that. Go second trace, enter, 32, would be $847. So that is finding the Y value when the X is given. So look at the instruction on finding the Y value on this page here. Let's use the graphing calculator. Now, the reverse would be true. How do you determine the X value? Now, remember, let's go back to the graph here. We know from our data that when the sales was a certain amount, the temperature certain, we have a sales value. Or here we have, when the temperature is 32 degrees, that's the amount of sales we'll have. Now, what happens if the reverse is true? If they tell you the sales and tells you what temperature it is, finding the X value. And that's where we're going to find. We're going to find the X value. The X value is our temperature. The Y value in this case here is our sales. When the sales is a certain amount, what is the temperature? Now that is the reverse. That's finding the X value when you know the Y. When you know the Y value. I know my Y, I want to find my X. So you'll follow this instruction here. Now, let's say, for example, that now according to our calculator here, let's go back here, when the temperature 20 degrees, the sales was 448.29. So let's write that down. So the sales here, so when the temperature at 20 degrees Celsius, the sales is $448.29. Now, that's what this calculator gives. Close to our approximation here. Now, what happened if they tell us that the sales is that amount? Let's say the sales is $448.29. What is the temperature in degrees Celsius? That's where you find the X value. This is your Y value. So the Y value. This is the Y value is given. We need to find the X value. Don't know what. And that's where we're going to use this step here. So you enter your equation in Y, which we did. That equation is already there. Okay, got that from the beginning. Now enter another equation, Y2. So in Y2, I'm going to go down here and to my right. The given value for Y, this is your Y value. I'll enter that into Y2 line. So 448.29. 448.29. Now, if I were to press graph, I'll see a line. That's my Y equals 448.29. Where it intersect, that will tell me my X and Y value. And you follow the instructions here. You press second trace calc. Second trace for calc, so I press second trace. And I want to go down to intersect number 5. Okay, I'm going to find where this, basically I'm finding where these two lines meet. And that gives me my X and Y. So second trace, intersect, number 5. They ask you first curve. So they'll ask you the first curve, right? You can press your left or right arrow, but just press enter 3 times. And that gives our value of 20 degrees at 448.2. It's almost 20 degrees. So this is my x. When the C is 448.29, my temperature is 19.99, 20 degrees Celsius. So here we're finding the x values and the y values. So let's repeat the process. Let's make it one more time. Okay, I need to go back to my deleted my equation, so I'm going to repeat it. Just that. Here's my equation again. Now, in this case, those are my line. I'll repeat it. I know my y value. I need to find my x value. Go to my equation here. I enter my y in line 2. Then I press graph. Here's my line. Define where they intersect. Second trace. Intersect, number 5. And press that 3 times. And that will give you the x value when you know the y. Okay, let's go on to one other example. An example which I skipped at the beginning. So example 4. And here we have sort of, you're given volume for a chemistry experiment. Different volumes of ethanol are poured into a beaker. After each volume is poured into a beaker, the beaker is weighed. Here are the results. So you have the volume, and this is the mass of the beaker and ethanol. So our x-axis here will be volume in milliliters. And notice it goes up to max of here. So our minimum on our scale should be 200. So we can make this 0. So if we have this here is 100. Max error is 200. So this is 50. So that's my x scale. My y scale is 246. So let's go to increment. We do the same thing here. So we have 50, 100. Massive beaker. And ethanol. In grams. Now at Pompey's point, at 0 it's 90. So that's the weight of the beaker. You can see there is no ethanol in it. The beaker is 90 grams. Then at 100 grams, the mass and ethanol is a 168. So use our trusted ruler. So 100 This 168, this is 150, 168 approximately here. Next is 50, 129. This is 150, so 129 will be around here. Then we have 150, 207, and 246 at 200. Which would be put a line of best fit. So we see a positive correlation here. Explain what the data is telling us, specifically about the correlation between the volume and mass of the beacon ethanol. So as the volume increases, the mass of the beacon ethanol increases. So volume of beaker increases. The volume of ethanol, I should say, of ethanol in beaker increases. The mass increases. That's the conclusion. So let's work this out in the graphing calculator. So I'm going to go back here. Now I can click back and clear all of my data here, or I could reset my calculator. So if I do that, I still have a set of data here that I have from the previous one, but we are going to change all of that by entering this set of data here. So remember, to do that, go back to our sheet, and you follow this set of instructions. Number 2, entering data. So we can follow the instructions on this sheet here. But I'm going to demonstration. So we need to put the set of data in. So I press my stat button, press enter, and I'll clear all of this data. Press clear, enter, clear, enter. If I do that and go to my graph, I have nothing here, right? So, because I have no data in there. So now I'm going to enter my given data. So 0, press enter. Okay, 0, 100, 50, 150, 200. Then move over to my L2, 90, and 246. I go to my graph and notice I don't seem to see any points here. So I need to set my window, and I'm just following the instructions here. Okay, I did my stat plot already. So I'll go to my window, and my X maximum should be at least 200. So I want to go up to 250. In my graph here, I went up to 300. So I use the same data. So I go to 300 here. And my Y maximum, oh, sorry, that's my Y maximum. My X went to 200, so I should change that. Sorry for that. So it should be 200. And my Y is 300. Now, my stat plot, now there are my points. Notice this go beyond. So I could have increased my X maximum. So I can go back to my window and maybe put this as 250. Now I need to get my line through it, my line of best fit. So you get your line of best fit, which is how to determine the linear regression. Which is this set of instructions here. So if you have enter L1 and L2, press your stat button and follow the instructions here. So we'll press my stat button, go to calc. I want to line of best fit, linear regression, press enter all the way through. And there's my linear regression. Go to my Y equal button, make sure it's cleared. Go to vars and go down to 5 statistics and then move over to EQ. And there's my equation, press, and there's my line of best fit. Seems to fit perfectly into it. And that is how you enter set of data into a graphing calculator and derive the equation or the regression equation to get the line of best fit. And so now we can see there's a positive correlation as X increases, Y increases. Now, let's look at some interpolation and let's go back to a little bit of data here. Now, let's say you said what will be the mass of the beaker in ethanol if the volume was 75. There's no volume here of 75. Let's say 75. So let's say it's 75. What would be the mass of the beaker in volume? Here is my regression equation. I can press now. I need to get I know my X, so X is equal to 75. What is Y? And in this case, you need to find Y, and you go to your instruction sheet here. To determine Y, so enter, we have our equation. Right? Second trace and choose 1. So second trace, and we're going to choose, press enter. Then we're going to enter our value for X. Notice the X is flashing. We press now 75. And that will give you a volume of 148.5 grams. And notice there's a cursor flashing there. That tells you the point of intersection between X equals 75 and Y equals 148.50, 148.50. That's how you find your Y. So we can conclude here that when X is 75, Y is 148.5. Now, what happens if we have a mass? On the other hand, the reverse happens. If you have a mass of, let's say, 200 grams, what is your, this is my X, and this is my, what is my volume? So I need to find a volume. And this is where you will be using finding the X value from your instructional manual. I'm referring to these so you will be familiar. There we go. I'm going to determine the X value. I know my Y is giving us 200. What is my X? We'll maintain our graph. Now, what we will do, we go to my y equal button, and do not change this first equation. That's your main equation. You do not want to change that. You want to find the intersecting point. Go to my y equal to, and what is my y value given? My y value given is 200. So I'll put 200 in here. Next, I'll press the graph button. And notice in my calculator it's a different color, but yours may be the same color as a shade of gray or black. Where it intersects here, that's where you'll find the y is 200. What is the x value? So we need to find the intersecting point. Now we're going to press second, trace, and we're going to go to number 5, intersecting point. And press this 3 times. And there it is. When x is 200, y is 141.02. So we can say that the volume now would be 141.02 milliliters. So make sure this sheet is handy because it helps you to navigate your way through the graphing calculator. Okay. So that concludes assignment 2. We're plotting points in the graph and find the line of best fit and describe it if it's a positive, negative correlation, or no correlation. So these 1 out of 4. So we can have a scatter plot. We have positive correlation, negative correlation, constant correlation, or no correlation. These are the 4 possibilities. So one last thing before I go. Now remember Desmos, I didn't show you how to use Desmos to find intersecting point. I'll show you that later. Now, if you want to find intersecting point in Desmos, let's look at this example here. Go back to Desmos. If I want to find where these 2 points intersect, I have to go down to another equation here, say y equal, let's say 200. And then it tells me 12.525. It's a bit easy with Desmos because it's a matter of just tapping, and that will give you your intersecting point. So when y is 100, x is 12.52. This is for the previous question. Now, so let me say now, how do I get the graphing calculator on my phone? I'm going to walk you through here. So if you have an Android phone, you just go to your Play Store and you will search for Wabbit MU here. WABBITE-MU. So I go to my Play Store and I search for Wabbit. I already have it here, Wabbit calculator. And you'll, in my case, the first one that came up here. There's also a free emulator also comes up. So you hit that. And in my case, you'll be asked to install. And once you install it, you'll just follow the instructions and you'll have TI-83. Now you could download the TI-84. It's basically the same. The TI-84 has some more features in it, but this is fine. TI-83 is just as good as the TI-84. in my case, I have one that give me graph in different colors. Doesn't make any difference.